to episode 3 of You and Your Consciousness. So as promised and as we talked about, this time we're going to start to communicate with other beings without using our language and our lips. This little technique is also very helpful to understand people who may speak another language other than you, or may have a little bit of an accent and you're having a difficult time understanding them in their English. This will actually help you connect with that person a little bit better, because you're going to start to learn to read frequencies coming from other things. This will also help you communicate with your children better, your animals. This is just the beginning of how to communicate without invading someone else's space, right? So you're not actually reading someone's mind, you're reading the frequency of their thoughts. And I want to make that real clear, so you're not being invasive to the other person, but everything emanates a frequency. When you speak, it emanates a frequency. So your brain has the thought, even if it's only a few seconds, before it actually comes out of your mouth of what you're going to say. Now that frequency emanates as well. So let's talk about how we're going to do that. First, let's talk about people that may speak another language other than you. So this might be a little bit easier for you. You can also talk to trees and plant life and make those kinds of connections. It's really interesting on how it works. But also, it also works for remote viewing and a lot of things, and we'll get into that in later episodes. But let's just talk about communication, because I feel it's one of the most important things that we can do is actually understand each other. And it's one of the ways that they divide us all, of course, and they try to divide us from our animals, our pets, and once you start doing this, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, I can hear everyone, I can hear everything. So let's talk about how to do that first. Okay, so from your solar plexus, where is the place that you always start with the most amount of energy in your body, I want you to slowly bring that energy up into your brain. I want you to start swirling that energy around your brain until you feel that your energy is now connected to your mind. This is the first step. So take as long as you need. After you practice a little bit, it'll become much easier. And then let's just say you want to talk to, or you want to have a communication with another, or you want to have a communication with, it doesn't matter the distance either. You can go as far as you need to go in the far outreaches of the universe to have a conversation. You can also have that direct conversation to source. So we talked last time about pulling the cord on an enemy. Let's talk about pulling the cord on source, right? So you're not obviously meaning harm here. You just want to have that communication and that access to everything. I mean, source records everything all of the time. It's constantly recording everyone's energy, everybody's movements, everything that everyone else does, and everything that is all recorded within source in what you would say real time or no time. So I want you to take that energy and imagine pushing it now out of your head. So you're going to create like a string in two cups, right? So your mind and your thought processes are yours, but you're going to create a connection to source directly.
Completado
so you can
destino.
pull that cord of light and it will take you directly to source, where you can now have that direct communication. But remember, source is kind of like the World Wide Web of energy, right? It's all there. So remember to be very specific in your communications. And when you ask your questions, you can get that answer back without invading your space or your energy. So important to know you're in the right place. You'll see it. If you close your eyes, it's much easier to see when you're just beginning. And you can now ask very specific questions or have a conversation directly. Like, what is it that you want to know? If you could call Source, God, our Creator directly, what would you ask? Not what Mary had for dinner. You're going to ask questions about, well, I want to understand how the universe was created, or I want to understand, how to better my relationship with my children, or whatever it is. It doesn't really matter, because Source knows the answer all the time, every time. This also will help you with your discernment, because discernment is extremely important. I mean, people are constantly posting videos like, Kim, watch this hour-long video. Kim, watch this 2-hour-long video. Kim, what do you think of Bill whatever? I don't even know who Bill whoever is, and I certainly don't have the time to watch 20 minutes or an hour or 2 hours of a video to try to understand who Bill is. So this is a way, what do I think is not important? What you think and what your discernment thinks is the most important thing. So if you're questioning whether the information you just heard is correct, you make that direct connection to source and ask the questions that you would otherwise be asking me. It's not up to me. It's you and your relationship with source that's the most important thing in developing your discernment. Now, discernment's also really important to kind of, I would say, master, or at least get pretty good at before you start communicating with other beings or with other people in this particular way. So, say you're having a conversation with someone and you don't quite understand them. Say they're from England or Scotland or Ireland, or they're from Germany and English is their second language, and you're having a little bit of trouble understanding what they're saying. By using this same method, you can connect to that person's brain frequency, which is going to tell you what they're saying. But you have to listen with your energy, and you're not listening with your ears. So you kind of got both going on at the same time, but you're not focusing on the frequency of the language. You're focusing on the frequency of their brain. So you're not entering their head. You're not making a connection with their brain. What you're doing is you're outside their field of energy, and you're reading the information that's emanating from their brain. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it's the way that you would read their frequencies. So now you can understand what they're trying to tell you, especially if their English is broken, or maybe English isn't your first language. Maybe you're talking another language and someone's speaking English really, really fast to you. This is the way you connect with another person who doesn't speak your verbal language. Eventually, as we move on into further ascending, I guess you would say, what we're going to be able to do is have these communications regularly. I mean, who needs news now, right? Who needs a news channel when you can say, well, what's going on in South Africa, or what's happening in Norway? You know, you can actually connect to the frequency of what's happening in the particular location, and you can see what's going on. This is part of remote viewing and remote listening. So all these things are going to become available to you as soon as you start mastering these different skills. And of course, always use these skills as just a guide for you. This is just the way that I do it. And when I'm teaching people, this is the way that I teach people when I am asked to do so. Now, as far as connecting to other people, remote healing is possible. And we're going to talk about that next time. You can connect into that person. Now, when you're just reading brain frequency, you're not violating their personal space, and you're not gaining access to their person without permission. Now, some people say, well, you know, I've asked your higher self to enter your energy. That is not true. If you were an enlightened being enough to have that communication, and you know that that person is not as adept at these different techniques as you are, and you assume that they are aware of their agreement, you are wrong. Okay, first of all. Second of all, if you're shielded, no one's going to be able to ask your higher anything. No one is even going to get close to your energy space. You're not going to hear the knock on the door. Or maybe like me, I've got hundreds of people that try to communicate with me all the time. I just block everything out. I take the telephone off the hook and I don't respond. Now, if it's a loud knock or a signature, energy signature I recognize, then I'll go, okay, that one's fine. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open the telephone line. I'm going to pick up the phone in this way, like we just talked about, and I'm going to answer you. Hi, how are you doing? It's good to hear from you. What can I do for you today? Or what do you need to talk about, right? Same thing, you'd answer the telephone. the one thing I want to make sure that people understand is as you start communicating not only with each other in this way, but also with others in this way, and you can communicate with nature in this way as well, that you're not violating someone else's space. Don't claim that you've had permission unless you know you've had this communication with another person or a being that is able to accept your invitation firstly, right? So that is a violation of free will, and again, you'll lose your ability to do that unless you're using a dark force. So be very, very careful. Now, communicating with your pets, communicating with animals, communicating with trees or plants, if that's what you want to do, you can do that in much the same exact way. You're just reading the frequency that they're emanating, and you're translating it into a language that you can understand. So if you want to talk to the plant, or you want to talk to the tree, or you want to talk to an animal, you will make that direct connection. Like, I'll give you a little example of something that happened. So there was a mother deer in my yard about a year ago, and her baby got trapped in my fence. So every day for months, the baby would go directly through my fence. And of course, the baby was getting bigger and bigger. This was in springtime. And the mother was so scared because the last time he tried to go through, the baby got caught. And she was freaking out. And of course, all these people were coming over to try to figure out how to get the deer out. Well, it was really easier for me. So I told the mom that I'm going to help the baby. I had this direct communication with the mom. And then I went over to the baby and I started putting calming energy around the baby. I calmed the baby down enough so it wasn't fidgeting and it wasn't swelling quite as much anymore. And then I had a conversation with the baby first, and I said, it's going to be okay. I'm here to help you. So the baby calmed down, and then we were able to slide the baby through the fence. It was simple as that. So this also goes into some other things as well, where you can expand and contract inanimate objects, right? What we view as a third dimensional object like a fence. So you can change the frequencies around that as well to expand that enough for them to go through. But that's a longer conversation and probably an episode down the road. So communication is key with each other. You can communicate with Mother Earth. Mother Earth also has a soul, and it also has a frequency. You can communicate with other people while you're driving. You know, you can do lots of different things. Just remember, don't violate their personal space. And that is Communications 101. So join us next time for How to Heal Yourself.